All right, it is 7 p.m. I hereby call this meeting of the Londonderry, New Hampshire Heritage Commission to order this 23rd day of February 2023. Looks like we have a quorum here, and we are all full members. So first item of business on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from January. I've taken a look at them. I didn't find any omissions or errors. Anybody else?
Oh, I think I'll make a motion, if no one has a problem, that we accept the minutes as presented tonight.
Would anybody like to second? Seconded by Kristen Endike. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Meeting minutes are approved.
6 of us here now, so more than a quorum.
All right, moving on to our design review applications. Our first application is for review of a site plan for the proposed development of a 264 dwelling unit multifamily residential development with associated parking and amenities at Michael's Way. Pillsbury Realty Development LLC owner and WP East Acquisitions LLC applicant.
So I know you have screens in front of you. I have handouts if you prefer.
I'd love if you could give handouts,
yeah.
only because trying to keep up with the screen it's a bunch of different PDFs, so.
If we had a screen in front of us or there or something would be the ideal situation, but
Yeah,
there's not.
thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, Heritage members, Chair Kenny, thank you for having us here again. For the record, Mark Seck on behalf of the applicant WP's Acquisition Wood Partners.
And Rob Del Savio from Embark Design, the project architect.
We also are joined with us by our engineer, Michael Malinowski of Allen & Major, who is the civil engineer, and they are also the landscape architect on this project as well. So if you remember, we were here a month ago, and you guys were kind enough to get us on the agenda here a month later, had asked us to go back and look at some of the elevations and materials that were used, and primarily here on kind of the main streets that would be Governor Bell and Michael's Way. So we've taken another stab at it, went back. We have a few ideas that we'd like to run by you, so we'll kind of just go through it. And before I do that, I'm just going to real briefly just highlight for the board's memory. This project is 11 three-story, 24-unit each standalone buildings with a standalone amenity building, totaling 264 units. There'll be a mix of one-bedroom den, two-bedroom, and two-bedroom and three-bedroom units. We have 338 surface parking spaces and 62 private garages for 400 total parking spaces, or a 1.52 ratio. Wood Partners, just as to jog your memory, we are fully integrated, so we're not only the developer, but we're also the general contractor and property manager, which we think helps align our interest that we stay with the project from inception through stabilization and ownership. So, Kelly, you might go to the next slide. So here is the site plan, and the yellow arrows are going to be the rendering shots that we're going to be showing you tonight. We had previously shown you two angles. One was fronting down Michael's Way, and another one was just of one of the interior buildings. So we're now going to be, at the request of the board, we're going to be presenting a rendering facing head-on to the buildings at Michael's Way, still facing down Michael's Way. One as you come to the roundabout at Michael's Way and Governor Bell, and then one as you come down more from Main Street on Governor Bell, and you'll see kind of our main amenity building there. So here, just for, again, to jog everyone's memory, these were the initial renderings and kind of the massing that we did. We've stuck with the same massing. We've broken it up by providing some color and different materials that we hope you'll enjoy, but just so you can get a glimpse of where we were, where we started as we get to where we are today. So and I'm going to have Rob, the architect, but one thing I did want to point out is, at the request of the board, is that we did provide, previously we did not have connections from the building to Michael's Way here. Access was provided on the rear side of the building, on the parking lot side, and we have now added connections to Michael's Way. But as was noted, there is a pretty significant grade there, and so stairs are required.
Thanks, Mark. So the scheme that you're looking at right now, we sort of did two schemes. We did one that features stone, which you see here, and then one which features brick, and we'll show you that one in just a second. And what we thought were the most prominent parts of the building are what we chose to clad in the nicer material, the stone material. So those are the sort of called the end caps of the building, if you will, the far right, far left in this view. And then down Michael's Way, we have 3 buildings, so those are basically 6 of the stone end caps that you see here. As Mark said, we not only have the staircases, but those staircases lead up to an actual entrance to the building. Before, no staircases, no real connection to the public way, and no access point from the exterior to the interior of the buildings. That was sort of common space. So with the steps that go up about 6.5 feet or so, which flank those with some landscaping, some vegetation, and those lead directly to entrances to the building. So again, this view is taken with stone, cladding the end caps, going up to the 3rd floor level, and clapboard siding and the board and batten siding in between. Over the lintels of the windows that exist within stone, we'll have a cast stone concrete lintel as well as a sill below those windows. Can we go to the next slide, Kelly? So this is shifted a little bit more perpendicular to the view to the building. Here you can see that walkway up now to the front door of the building. Again, there'll be another door on the other side of the building, which is really going to be the side most commonly used if people drive into their house and park. But we wanted to address the street in a better way here. Here you can start to see the massiveness, the richness of the stone pictured pretty well. You see it returning into the volume of the building. That really, I think, goes a long way to sort of make these 3 buildings feel special. And you'll see when we look at the site plan how we've actually taken some of that stone and put it on the clubhouse building as well. Next slide, please. So this is now looking back at the sign that we talked about, the property sign. We have 2 different versions of that, one where it's stone, matching the stone on the buildings, and one where it's brick, which we'll see matching the brick on the buildings. We don't necessarily think it's that important to tie it to what's happening for the Derry Medical building in terms of material. I think it more needs to tie to the materials used on the residential buildings, and you'll see that as we go further here. Next slide, please. So this is the clubhouse building. This is the other view that we talked about. Here we're going to feature the stone or the brick, sort of surrounding the main entrance to the building, flanking the entrance left and right, or some of the amenity spaces, be they fitness centers, community rooms, or other meeting type spaces. Next slide. Okay, so now this is the brick version. We've taken the stone off, put the brick on, same extent of brick, same extent of stone. Walkways, entrances up to the buildings remain the same as they were in the first scheme. But the big difference here is that it's a red, brownish brick versus the stone panels that we saw in the previous slide. And again, same view as earlier, showing the entrance up. We personally think the stone actually feels a little bit more fitting for the site. It has a little bit more of a sort of an agrarian feel to it, farmhouse feel to it. So although we started with brick when we started looking at it in the office, we kind of got to the stone and thought maybe this is actually the right way to go. And then the last slide, I think that may be the last one.
Yeah, there's one more.
Yeah, there's one. So this, again, features the sign with it clad in brick if the buildings were to be brick. So those are the studies that we did. We think it actually made a big difference, not only studying whether it be brick or stone, but also studying the colors themselves of the clapboard, the panel, the fiber cement panels, and so forth. And you'll see in this view, the building on the right-hand side, that is another building that would also be clad in brick and or stone. that heads up towards the community building. So it's really the 4 buildings that we've chosen to clad, the ones facing the slightly more public side of things. I think that's, yep.
So yeah, that's kind of it. You know, we did, put in a couple slides, the guidelines that were from both the master plan as well as the Londonderry lookbook. We thought it was, prevalent to show these images, and that's kind of where we initially got our initial renderings and design ideas from, were from the lookbook and the PUD master plan. So with that, I mean, that's kind of the updates we've made. Like I said, I mean, most of it has been to the materials. The one site change was adding those access ways on Michael's Way. So, we'd love to hear your reactions to the changes we made. We think we've come a long way, and I think visually now, as you drive down Michael's Way and enter the site, whether through Governor Bell or Michael's Way, it's something that the town can be really proud of and looks really appealing.
Or even the site plan, either one.
Stone or brick?
We like the stones, probably a stone one, but love to hear the board's thoughts.
I think I personally would tend to agree with you on the stone. I think with the design, the way the building is, the stone looks a little better to me. But I'll open it up to commissioners to make comments, ask questions.
I like the stone also. It seems a little classier.
It does seem a little classier, yeah.
And it has a little of difference from the, Dairy Medical Building.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we thought too, right? Is that that's commercial, right? And how can we differentiate residential from commercial in a different block, a different zone, and that's why we kind of thought the stone, kind of differentiated.
Its own thing, but yet there is a blending. So look at the brick. The brick just kind of hit me in the eyes, and it's too strong compared to the wooden part, where the stone seems to have more compatibility with the wood.
Color scheme.
What is the color that you're going to be using for the wood?
So we did change initially the board and bat. Initially, we had an off-white. We decided to go with kind of that bright white to kind of tie in the stone features, but also kind of that bright white that you see a lot in town with kind of that farmhouse feel. And then for the dark gray there, it's kind of a slate gray. We also looked at it with like a hint of blue that we like too. It's not imposing blue, but there's a sense of blue in it. And that's
white has a more formal look to it than probably a beiginess.
yeah.
We like the contrast of it against the stone,
Yeah.
the white against the stone.
I think it's definitely better than what they first came in with as far as the stone and brick. They're both good materials. They're within our scope of what we see. So either one is fine with me. I mean, I think it looks good. I think the stairs are a good add
Yep.
to Michael's Way. The only, and it's not an issue, I understand why they don't want to have like a brick wall. That makes sense to me. Like, try to match like Dairy Medical Center. I get it. I understand that. As long as it's done tastefully, I think it's good.
Yeah, it has a nice, to me, like a nice class about it.
Yeah, and
upscale.
the only thing that I would, and I'm sure it'll probably come up in the planning board, I could be wrong, is that the faces on Governor Drive, Governor Bell, and Woodmont Ave, those buildings, those faces, I think, should carry up and around. The ones that is close to the packing center, the packing building there is no road there. I don't know if there is gonna be a future road there or what transpires with that. But if it's based on what I see here, that would be only my recommendation, is face the other ones on Woodmont Ave and Governor Bell. And I think we've made some really good strides.
Yeah, because I think the plans anyway are rough plans for the old storage building is for like a community center or a performing arts
Yeah.
thing. Who knows? I guess they wanted to keep that building anyway.
I don't know.
So of course around there would be, you'd have to probably have parking and,
Maybe,
Yeah, so
maybe
it's not gonna be
phase,
like a
phase
major
two.
throughway.
So, what'd you
Maybe,
say?
maybe phase two, hopefully.
Oh, maybe?
who knows?
You never know.
I think it's growing by bits and pieces, so.
So that would be 4 additional faced buildings.
Yeah, that's my recommendation.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, they've got, when you look at the master plan here, they have all the parking inside the way the way that we envisioned it. And like I said, if they dress up the other buildings that face Woodmont Ave and Governor Bell, and
Yeah, because they're all
Yeah.
like a front.
exactly, yeah.
20 years from now, I'm sure it'll be busier than it is now, so.
My 2 cents here, love the stairs, and thank you for the entranceways on Michael Way. I was gonna ask a question about the facing and the additional buildings, so I think that's been addressed. I have a note from the minutes about shutters. Did you consider shutters on the exterior of the building?
Yeah, we did. You don't typically see them on, we thought it would look weird having it just at the top and seeing them against the brick or stone. You don't typically see that on buildings of this size, and it did look a little bit out of place. We did look at it and it felt it didn't really match the aesthetic.
I'll be honest with you, I like the stone also, and I don't think the shutters will be missed, so.
Yeah.
I think during our last meeting, we had discussed a signage plan, but I'm not sure if I'm misremembering this. Were you guys not ready to submit the signage yet?
So we did add this monument sign.
I see that on here. Are you planning on adding that for the design?
Yes,
Do you have a signage plan for that sign?
we can get you the specs, and that'll be part of the updated submission to the planning board.
I want to ask a question, can I pipe in here? So the type of sign that you have there,
Yep.
that sits on the corner,
Yeah.
I don't consider that a monument sign. Is this the type of design you're talking about?
It is, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think our thought is, we haven't gone this far, it would most likely to have the cabinet lit, and whether the cabinet's lit or there's ground uplighting, those both fall under the PUD's allowable lighting.
Uplighting?
I believe uplighting was on it.
Yeah, the PUD has its own separate,
Yeah.
But I think we would look to
And
do,
also the
I think we would look to
site
do a
plan regs are
cabinet
different.
light. So that would basically be a lighting cabinet,
Okay. I mean, the purview of this commission particularly is around kind of the design element anyway. But if you go to the planning board, of course, you're gonna have to have the design plan because you have to meet dimensional requirements.
Yep, of course, yeah, yep.
I do happen to like the design of this sign.
I do too.
Yeah, I think it fits in there good.
Yep,
Yeah.
I do.
I think it looks really good, having the stone kind of complement the stone on the buildings. It
Yep.
looks great, so.
The landscaping looks good.
Yeah, I think we went through it, actually, in the last meeting, and, you guys had lilacs in there, I think, right?
And this is not a one-for-one of the landscape plan, right? This is not an exact,
Yeah,
and we got
right.
comments back from conservation on the landscape plan that, we'll look to make those edits before
I
we
think we were good.
file the final with the planning board, so. And we've also gotten feedback from the other various town departments and whatnot. So everyone's comments are gonna be incorporated when we make our final submission.
So what are your thoughts on facing the remaining buildings around Woodmont and Governor Bell Drive? As I said, that's 4 additional buildings that will
Yeah.
have stone face.
We thought this was a big give, candidly. I mean, the economics are tight, and this, believe it or not, is more than it looks like. We have designed those buildings to be a similar aesthetic with colors, not the materials, and we're still thinking of doing lap siding. If you look at the PUD, I mean, we're using the earth tones. Vinyl is an allowed material. We're not going to go that low. So I think that's something to be respected there, that we're going to be doing lap and not vinyl. So our intention is to not do it on those 4 buildings. That would be 8 out of the 11, and it's going to really hurt the financial feasibility of the project.
So you mentioned that you're actually going with a different design for the other buildings other than the ones with this facing.
They're going to be all the same building, just instead of having stone, it's going to be cementitious lap.
Okay.
But we
so
would pick a
same-
color.
Same design elements as everything else.
Correct.
Minus the stone.
Correct. Yeah.
Question. Is this material the stone material? Because there's different materials and different quality materials out there. Some are truly fabricated, and you can tell right off the bat.
Yeah, this is not a natural stone. It's a cultured stone.
It is a
Yeah.
cultured stone. Is it, have you made a selection on?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can
product?
provide samples. All of our properties that you'll see online, that's all cultured stone.
We're envisioning one that has a sharper cut, is less rounded. than
Yep,
more of a cut
understood.
one. The rounded ones tend to look very manufactured. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in your prior submission, you actually provided some of the pictures from other properties, correct?
Those were just sample properties, not of our own, that we thought when we had our initial thinking of what the building would look like, they were similar kind of demographic and town-like qualities. None of them obviously had any kind of stone, and so we've added that. That's where we got the ideas from, but happy to follow up with the board, pictures of where we've done this type of stone. We typically don't have it come up this much. It's usually just at the lower levels. So this would be, a nice add is doing this much stone. So happy to submit those. It's I don't know what the brand is, but it's a known brand. I mean, it's a very high quality coat. I mean, like I said, it's a big add in cost to do this stone.
Do you happen to know the brand offhand?
Cultured stone, Coronado stone.
I know it's called.
We can get into some of the Chinese
Ohio
stones.
Smokestack. I think it's.
Get the hard look at some of it.
Some of them are brutal.
I won't pull it fast.
Yeah, I can't. We can follow up with that as well.
Appreciate it.
Or Dry Stack, Ohio Dry Stack, I think it's called.
Budget committee feeling a little,
Oh, please, the budget committee. Oh, God. Good.
yeah, 'cause they meet tonight.
I
I thought it was them.
got my hands full with some other stuff. So I would like to make a recommendation. I respect you, gentlemen. I truly do. Like I've said before, they come up with a great product. I've seen it. I've been involved in some, and we'll leave it at that. And I would recommendation that they face those other buildings, though, to the planning board. That would be my recommendation.
Anybody else care to weigh in?
I agree with Jim on facing all of the buildings surrounding.
I don't think the back buildings, no.
Can we go to the site plan, just to?
On the street.
Yes,
The slide.
yes.
Yeah. So currently, we have the 3 along Michaels.
Yep.
And then the one going up the page towards the clubhouse. Then we have the stone in the clubhouse, currently in the renderings that you've seen thus far.
Which building is the clubhouse? Is that the one in the middle along Governor Bell?
Correct,
in
right,
front of the
right
pool.
pool, yeah.
Okay.
That's the clubhouse there?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
And that one's gonna have, I saw in the rendering, I'm not sure if it's just kind of the lighting in the rendering or not, but is it gonna be the same stone material, or were you going with like a slightly different color?
No, the same, it's meant to be the
Same
same.
exact
It's a little
material.
tough to, yeah.
So, actually, it's 3 buildings, 3 additional buildings that we'd be suggesting then, if that one is already gonna have the stone on it, correct?
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, the 2 on Woodmont and then the 1 on the
Yeah, okay. So I would tend to agree, Jim, as well. As time goes on, these streets are all gonna be kind of major thoroughfares in the Woodmont Commons project. So, I would love to see all of them faced. Even though Michael's Way is kind of gonna be the major thoroughfare there, there's gonna be a lot of traffic going by these other roads, and I would love to see them faced. So I would say, I would join you in that recommendation.
The other thing too is, based on my experience with cultured stone, I would like to see a sample of the stone that they're looking at.
Okay.
They could always drop off a sample and then we could look at it at our convenience or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, we're not discussing another meeting, we're discussing
No,
each commissioner coming in at their own.
yeah, we can do it that way.
Convenience.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, sometimes we like to touch and feel also.
Yeah, of course,
Well,
yes.
it's
We have a planning board meeting coming up,
Is
here
this-
in a little bit,
The
that,
8th, yeah.
that we're gonna be attending as well. So
Oh,
we could take a look if it was there by then.
yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't know when you guys are scheduled for a planning board meeting.
No, we,
No, I'm asking,
oh, yeah.
you know, from
We're
here,
having the Lookbook joint meeting.
yeah, that's a different meeting.
So this commission has a joint meeting with the planning board on March 8th.
Correct.
The applicant has not submitted a formal submission yet, so they're not scheduled for planning board at this time. They're
Okay.
still in their design review phase.
Understood.
But I don't know what their timeline is
Well,
to
yeah,
get
we'll-
the sample, but we can certainly arrange for
We'll get it as soon as
commissioners
we
to
can,
come in.
and at a minimum, we'll circulate some photos of projects we've done, so you can see it as a whole to Kelly, and she can,
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, just have the sample
send
sent
around
to them
to
and
the
we'll
board. yeah.
take a look at it. I don't think we need another meeting. It's just,
Yeah,
I've
it-
seen
it-
some
yeah,
jobs
it
where,
doesn't
and
require
I
another
respect
meeting.
your,
Right.
believe me, I'm not a color guy, but there are some of those jobs that just look horrendous. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
We have one in town, I won't say which one.
Okay. Yes, sir.
It sounds to me, the sense of the board is near unanimous on Jim's recommendation. Maybe the notes could reflect that in terms of the strength of feeling on the commission as to facing those additional buildings.
No, I was actually just about to go over these notes, so I'll make a further note about that, and then I'll recap.
And I think the sign that's in the rendering is, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I like it.
I mean, I think it's a classy design.
Yep. It fits right in.
Yeah.
with the Buildings.
Yep. It does.
Nice continuity.
You guys look very, very serious right now.
I know.
I'll tell you something, there is so much good in what you've brought.
We
in
think it
my
looks great, yeah.
estimate, in terms of what you
And
brought here
we're glad
tonight.
that the boards, I mean, you guys were all very big on the brick, and here you have it, you like the stone better, just like us, so.
Yeah. Well, I
But you
think you
can't
guys,
reject it.
you guys changed the
The
color
objective.
scheme a little bit
Yeah,
too,
we got a
which I
little
think
more
plays a
color.
little better with
It
the
does, yeah,
stone than
yeah,
it would with
it
the brick.
does.
Looks
Yeah.
good. See, we don't bite.
No, we appreciate the feedback and the
Just got to
comments.
change our minds.
We all, I mean,
Absolutely, 100%.
we want to build the nicest product we can, right? We have,
know.
certain items that we can, allocate dollars towards, and others we can't. We pick and choose, right? That's the game.
While the chairman's doing his notes, have you guys settled on what your target rents are for these units yet?
No.
I
you
bring
know,
that up
we're-
because you brought up the economics of it.
For
so-
sure, right. We can only underwrite what rents are today, right? We're not gonna, this project won't deliver for 2 years, so who knows what environment we'll be in 2 years? It's their market rate, so whatever the market dictates. So, I
Rental
mean,
market is in tiers, I think, to a certain extent. Do you see this being top-tier rental property?
yeah, I
or-
think if you look at, I mean, a good starting point, but if you look at the rents they're getting next door, that's what we would hope to get. And yeah, I think we'll have nicer finishes than that building, and no knock on them. I mean, you know, and we'll be fully amenitized. They don't have any amenities. We're gonna have a full clubhouse, the big great lawn there, pool, courtyard, you know, gym. So we think that'll be more attractive to residents. And we're gonna target, you know, we'll target people that are working in Manchester and northern Massachusetts, you know, maybe someone who has to commute a day or two into Boston. We do know at Woodmount Commons, there is a lot of empty nesters that, you know, they sold their big house in Londonderry and, you know, don't want the home ownership. And so we'll have a mix of young working professionals that work in both southern New Hampshire and northern Massachusetts, and then empty nesters and downsizers.
I know this sounds crazy. Are you gonna allow pets?
We do, yeah, yeah.
Just checking. Just checking.
Yep.
I think most places now do that now.
You kind of have to nowadays. Everyone's got
Well,
a
I had
pet,
to
yeah.
ask, well, with the pets,
Yeah.
just out of curiosity, do you have like a dog park?
We
where
do have a
these
dog park
people are
programmed
able
in,
to-
yeah, there's a dog park programmed
Awesome.
in the Great Lawn,
See?
yeah.
All right.
And we'll have a
That's
pet,
a first
we'll have a
in town.
pet wash in the amenity building too, yeah.
Good.
All right, so the notes that I've made so far is we're looking for either the brand of stone material or a material sample. And we're gonna make a recommendation to the planning board that the 3 additional buildings along Governor Bell and Woodmont Drive, Woodmont Avenue, excuse me, are faced with the stone as well. Otherwise, I think we can approve the design just pending the review of that stone material.
Recommend, it's a recommendation to the planning board.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, recommend to the planning board the approval of the design.
Unanimous.
So that is, considering the 3 additional sided buildings, I wrote, recommendation, by unanimous Heritage Commission, left a word out there, to face additional buildings along Governor Bell Drive and Woodmont Avenue in consideration of future traffic on these routes.
Are there any other questions while we are here? I mean, it sounds like you're,
That's it for me. Anything else from other commissioners?
That's why we need samples.
okay, yeah. So we'll coordinate that with Kelly, if that's all right with you, Kelly, thank you.
Perfect.
Okay,
you
well,
very
thank you
much,
very
gentlemen.
much, Chairman Kenny
Thank
and
you.
members of the board,
Appreciate
appreciate it,
it.
thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it. Good job.
Okay, our next application is for design review of a site plan amendment for the construction of a proposed 3,116 square foot bank with drive-through, associated parking, and site improvements at 66 Gilcrest Road. Chase Bank applicant and Gilcrest Road Realty Trust owner.
Good evening, folks. Randy Byron with Bowler. Also with me is James Manning with Core States, the project architect. And I think last time we met, there was just maybe a handful of comments that you asked us to kind of look into. I know one of them was to incorporate some purple lilacs into the landscaping design, which we have done. I think there's some lilacs kind of sprinkled in around the building. The other comment, if we flip to the next slide, was relative to the building. And I think the previous building, I think the comment was, it was, I guess, a little too gray in color. So we've added some red brick, like a lighter tone red brick, to help kind of brighten it up. And there was also some window muttons that were added to help kind of break up some of those blank window spaces. And if we flip to the next slide, and then really the last comment was just to essentially match for the monument sign base, the brick would match the building. And I mean, that was generally it. We included some other just elevations of the building, just so you can see what it looks like with some of the signage. But that was it. I mean, I guess I'll open it up to the commission if there's any additional comments or feedback that they have.
Question, Mr. Chairman. Yes. I noticed that you've made a note that you're looking at a Belden brick, just a kind of a velour red, I think it is. Is that a solid red? Or does it have a slight variation to it?
I think typically most bricks that, we haven't specified a specific brick.
Oh, okay.
Correct, on this project yet. So this rendering is, for the commission to get an understanding of what the building will look like when it's built. So you had brought up that maybe we would be using an iron spot, or you mentioned another local brick that was developed in Massachusetts.
There's Stiles and Hart, and then you have actually Glengarry brick in Maine.
Yes,
And they're both local.
I believe that was it.
Yeah.
So we're just looking at, there would probably most likely be some texture, as all bricks I think naturally have some texture, except when they're painted.
Well, I'm talking about the color.
Right. There should be some natural variation
Okay.
within the brick.
Good.
I feel like it's only totally one color when it's painted. I may be wrong about that though. But yeah, there should be some sort of natural variation within the texture.
Okay. When you're talking about painted, you're not talking about, are you talking about a clay-based brick? Or a drive-it brick? Ephes brick? You just kind of caught me off guard with the painted
Right.
thing.
Let me think.
I mean, the Belden is a clay-based brick. What you have on the plans, that's a clay-based.
We're most likely to select a brick from the manufacturer Endicott.
You like Endicott, huh?
Yes, so that's typically what we're specifying on these Chase Banks. And I think in previous Chase Banks, we've kind of have a relationship with that brand.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I get it.
and then we'll be using a thin brick, not a
A thin
full-size
brick. Yeah,
brick. Yes.
understood. Yeah.
More like a veneer type of thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as whether it be fired clay or what have you, we'll probably go with whichever one makes the most sense financially, as well as which has the the color that we're looking for.
Yeah.
That's kind of our primary driver.
Well, I mean, if you like Endicott, that's a clay-based brick.
There you go.
It's not an ephes or anything like that. To try to get some color into it, maybe you want to look at the medium iron spot or
Right.
the Kendall Square blend.
Okay.
Just,
We love we love recommendations from the board, so we will look at iron spot brick. Absolutely.
thank you.
Could I make a suggestion, Mr. Chairman? Once you fellows have looked at it and sort of narrowed down your choices, because it sounds like you're still thinking about it, I think we've asked for samples in the past. Maybe we'd like to get a sample on what you want, and then we'll make a very specific recommendation based on the samples you sent.
Yeah, agreed, especially since, as you just stated, you haven't actually chosen your brick yet. So without a statement saying that that's the brick you're gonna use, I would love to just see a sample before we approve.
Absolutely.
We can do the same that we did with our last submittal. We can approve or recommend to approve pending review of the samples so that you guys don't actually have to come back for another meeting. Assuming there's nothing else that we come up with while you're here.
We still got plenty of time, so who knows?
Yeah, and I think we could get you a sample and maybe even some photos too. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Great. I do have to say, I definitely like the design a lot better. It breaks it up quite a bit more. It seemed like it was kind of one monochrome color with slight variations only. The brick definitely helps break that up, and so don't the mullions in the windows.
Yeah, I was just looking at my notes. I think the comment was the previous building looked sterile, which
That was,
it kind of did.
Definitely dates itself. Let's put it that way.
This has some life in it, and it looks like a bank, you know?
Agreed.
I do think, and again, this is kind of outside the purview of this commission, but I do think that you're gonna run into trouble with the signage that you currently have. You have it on multiple sides of the building, so I think the planning board's probably gonna call you out on that, just so you're aware.
Right.
Okay, Kelly will hit you first, so.
Yep, I'm sure, yes.
However, I don't think the issue of the signage should nix the deal.
Understood.
No, you're just gonna end up maybe having to change a couple of things, but.
Be a little open-minded, that's all.
If you don't like the regulations, you always go to the ZBA for variance.
God.
I think we'll avoid that.
Design-wise, further comments or
No, I-
questions, anything from commissioners?
They presented, now, looks good.
Agreed.
There'll be a little more life on that corner than even what's there now.
Yeah,
For sure.
Definitely.
Okay. I'm going to recommend approval pending review of the samples.
and that's just samples of the brick. You don't need any
Correct.
samples, okay.
Yeah, everything else is pretty standard, I think.
We had brought in some samples of the siding that we were thinking about using, the cement fiber boards.
Yeah, you brought that in last time, we took a look at that. It's all hardy board. correct?
Those were the specific types of sample, but again, cement fiber boards. Part of the reason I think we like to stay at this point a little bit more high level with our material selection is some of the supply chain issues that have been happening. These banks are in a pretty quick turnaround. So we like to give the GC or the general contractor some flexibility in what materials he is selecting.
Oh, the general contract for the owner.
Right. There's a very specific process that they go through to select these materials. And it would not, the variation would not be, with color or with, finished material, very minute changes within that. They have to stay pretty close to what we're showing within these colored elevations.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
I think if you give them, the general contractor gives the subcontractor, whoever buys out the materials, the lead time they need, instead of waiting till the last minute. I'm not saying this general contractor will, but I've certainly seen it and experienced it. Make sure they have plenty of time for lead times now.
Understood. Understood.
And I would say Endicott's probably maybe 12 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Could I just add a comment? So we're talking about doing a similar approach in providing, or the applicant providing the samples for the brick. And you mentioned recommending approval pending the samples. To stay within your advisory purview, I would suggest, you had some good comments about the color and the changes. So making sure to include that so that the planning board sees those comments. And then once you review the samples, I would suggest recommending whether this commission is in support of those samples or not in support of those samples. Just so we're clear on the verbiage.
Yes.
Do you want me to type something up and send it to you?
If you'd like, I can do it and we can do it back and forth and,
That's fine.
okay?
Thanks. Okay,
Okay, awesome.
thanks,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
gentlemen.
Thank you
Good to
for
see
your
you
time.
again.
Thank you, you too.
All right, that is it for our formal review applications. Moving on to staff reports.
I don't have any staff reports. I already mentioned the joint meeting, which is March 8th with the planning board. So that's a next item.
Is that a 7 o'clock start?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we just have one item, it was a continued lot line adjustment, wasn't there, Kelly? The 8th.
Correct, on the planning board hearing on the 8th, there's a continued lot line adjustment.
They have everything in line, it should be fairly straightforward.
Yes, they do.
Lot line adjustments are usually
lot?
fairly simple.
Yeah, what lot line adjustment is this?
It's,
Then I think this would be the second,
This is the rail trail?
the second thing.
no,
Oh,
no.
okay.
This is on Greeley Road, Walters lot line adjustment. It's 2 lots, 1 lot
Simple.
line adjustment, very straightforward.
And then other than that, the only thing on the agenda is the kind of the joint discussion of the lookbook
Yes.
updates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then in the planning board rules and procedures, there's a process for joint meetings, so
Okay.
we'll follow that.
Is there any homework, anything we're supposed to do prior to that meeting?
We did have a little bit of discussion regarding the lookbook stuff of maybe, people coming in with ideas of buildings around town that they thought were representative of kind of the town feel that we're going for. Maybe pictures, if you happen to, go by any buildings that you say, oh, that's a really good one. Or better yet, if you're aware of buildings that we've specifically approved on this commission, that we got some changes that we really liked. If we can bring in any kinds of pictures that would kind of be able to help guide the discussion, or again, even if you don't have pictures, if you can just bring up a building that everybody might be aware of, that we could say, oh yeah, this has, great architectural design elements in it that we're interested in. But other than that, I don't think there's like any real homework, so to speak.
Yeah, there's usually certain features, traditionally the Heritage Commission has liked, is like peaked roofs, earth tone, kind of a, typical asphalt shingle look. And now even metal roofs have that asphalt shingle look, so.
Yep.
In fact, they're even more creative than the asphalt shingle people. So, I mean, it's particular things, instead of, the flat roof monolithic building, we tend not to like. I know very early on, we liked the look of 101 through Bedford. Kind of a colonial theme.
All right, that's it for staff
That's it for
reports?
me.
Awesome. Moving on to other business, we have a presentation regarding Lithia Springs from Mr. David Ellis.
Are you
Oh,
going
and
first?
then I think Mike also, Mike Spells.
Okay.
You should,
Start this off.
Yeah, I'm only here to, if someone's got historical questions.
Oh, okay.
you should be able to
So it's kind of
control
like,
it, Mike.
like a
with the
tag
clicker.
team.
Okay, good. So, let's see, front, back, and spotlight, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. For the record, I'm Mike Speltz. I'm from the Conservation Commission, and I am really here just to update you on the Lithia Spring project that the town's in the middle of. We're trying to acquire the 54 acres that the historic Lithia Spring House was on. And in the process of doing this, an issue arose, let me say. So do you get these slides on your monitors in front of you, or?
We do, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. So
It's in
the
file.
picture you're looking at is a causeway. You're looking at it with the spring house behind you, and the causeway is leading to Route 102. So we had back in the late 19th century, they found this spring. They said it had medicinal value to it, and began exporting this Lithia spring water all over the U.S. and in some cases, in some claims, around the world. They had to get the water from the spring over to Nashua, where the bottling company was. And unfortunately, there was a wetland that intervened between the spring and the road. So they built this earthen causeway, cutting the wetland in half. When we tried to get funding to make this purchase, one of the things that we said we would do, because we were applying to the Aquatic Resources Mitigation Fund, and they are in the business of mitigating the harm that's done by developers when they fill in wetlands. So we offered to remove the causeway, thereby restoring the wetland that's on either side of the causeway. You can't really see it in this picture on the left side, but it looks pretty much the same to what you're seeing on the right. And that led to a concern from the New Hampshire Department of Historical Resources, who said, oh my goodness, the causeway is an important part of the historical value of the Lithia Springs site. It's part of the story. Here's the water. Here's how we got the water over to the bottling plant in Nashua. So it's just sort of a map to show you that. So the red arrow there is pointing to the causeway, which is runs very straight and almost due north from Route 102 up toward the land where the Lithia Spring is located, and that's that red circle or pin that's up there. The compromise that was worked out, there was a site visit by the Army Corps of Engineers, Department of Environmental Services, Aquatic Resource Mitigation Fund. The Forest Society is going to hold an easement on the property, and I'm probably missing one or two other agencies, to try to solve this tension between the historic value of having the causeway in place and the habitat value of restoring the wetland, which is kind of what we had promised when we asked for the $500,000 that we were awarded from the Aquatic Resource Mitigation Fund. So the compromise that was worked out is to keep the northern 90 feet of the causeway, so the area from the red arrow, the point of the red arrow, and then moving up or north to where the upland takes over, and there isn't wetland on either side, and it's no problem. It used to be a road there that's now overgrown. What that did then was allow us to sort of, from a presentation of the public's point of view, link the story together. You had the spring at your back. You're looking out on the causeway. It was clear that the causeway was built to get the water to the road to Nashua. And yet at the same time, by taking out the bottom part of the causeway, the diagonal blue lines that represent wetlands. So we were able to put this wetland back together after the causeway had cut it apart. And all those agencies were agreed that this was a reasonable compromise, preserve the historical value, enhance the value of the wetlands. So my main purpose of being here is just to let you know that is the proposed solution, and I hope solicit your support of that solution. This is a LiDAR image. So this is the land without the trees on it, basically. So the LiDAR can look right down the surface of the land. So you can see standing out there very clearly where the causeway is, that straight line of a higher elevation. So in this picture, lower is one color, and then the higher it is, the brighter that color becomes. You can see there that the double-headed arrow where the two wetlands are connected, and then you can see the Springhouse foundation, which is at the top arrow there. There's another sort of depression to the top left of the Springhouse that David thinks is probably an old barn, but to keep the horses that would pull the wagons with the water out to 102. But it doesn't look as good as what it shows on this. It's just a depression in the ground with a couple of stones. There's really nothing left, as opposed to the Springhouse, which has, it's pretty clear where it is. The foundation stones are there. some of the brick columns are there that held the spring house up. There's no structure left. There's none of the wood survived. There's trees growing in it, but we plan on doing some cleanup on it, and that's kind of what's highlighted here. So this is a picture of the spring house, so the foundation of it. This spring itself is within that foundation. If you look carefully, you can probably make out a couple of the brick columns that held up the joist under the floor of the spring house. What we hope to do then is build a trail that would lead people into the site, have a sign there explaining what the Lithia Spring water bottling company was, what this spring is, the fact that it was commercially used all over the world. Interestingly enough, one of the main uses of it was as a mixer, because this was during the time of Prohibition. And then and I have another sign on the short trail that leads to the head of the causeway, and another sign that explains this is the causeway that was used to convey the water from the spring down to the highway. And then, if you know where the little fence company is on at the intersection of 102 and High Range Road, just on the northeast corner of that intersection, there's actually a piece of that land that belongs to the same parcel that we're buying, and we will make that hopefully into a parking area. We'll have to work with the town engineer to make sure that that's a feasible solution, but it would give us a place to park, put a sign there at the entrance explaining what you're walking into, a path taking you to the spring house site, and I hope a path that leads north to the beautiful area over the Nessunkeag Brook that's on the north side of the property. So that's the plan, and I'm hoping that you can support that. I would like to be able to report back to all these agencies that I just mentioned that you are in agreement that this is a reasonable way to proceed and try to balance these two conflicting aims of historic preservation and habitat protection. And that's the briefing. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I do have some questions. Now, that road from the spring house to 102 has been there for how many years? I'm just trying to educate myself.
Yeah,
I mean, how many years has that road been in? I'm sorry, Dave.
Jim's asking, how old is that causeway?
The causeway, as near as I can tell, was constructed round about 1884, 85, and it was in use for about 30 years.
Okay. Now, from a wetlands perspective, it's been there for years.
Yes.
Has it really damaged anything there? It's mind-boggling to me that.
The wetland to the west
Yeah.
is in good condition.
Okay.
That little piece that's
Yes.
trapped there is
Yeah.
not in good
It's
condition.
not in good condition. Okay.
And by removing the southern part of that causeway, you're going to let the water go back and forth. Am I right, Mike?
Yeah, if you stand on the causeway, you'll see that the water on the east side,
Yeah.
to the right, looking at this picture, is right now. I mean, it varies with the weather, but right now it's maybe a foot or so higher than the water on the left side. So water is slowly can move through the material that causeway is made out of, but it's not functioning, as a hydraulically connected wetland.
Okay.
And it means that a lot of the species that are in the larger wetland can't get into the smaller wetland because they're just blocked, by aquatic species by the presence of the causeway. And that was what was so appealing to the grant makers and why they wanted to fund us to do this project, because they wanted to see that wetland restored.
And they couldn't restore it with culvert going underneath it? I'm just curious. I just, because we have the same condition up at the
Give you enough
trailways
water
up
flow,
at
is it,
the
Mike?
airport. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, we did look at the idea of a culvert,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the wetland scientist basically said, no, that's really
Okay.
not gonna do the trick.
The other thing is, you put in a culvert, the town's gonna have to maintain it.
Yeah, right.
Well, let's think about that.
Yeah, I think you want to keep that
There
water
is-
flow like something
There's
natural.
another advantage as well, which has very little to do with either the history or the wetlands, that by making, you're gonna have public going in there to look at the historical artifact. If that causeway is complete, that's an open invitation for them to wander down onto a 55-mile-an-hour highway.
Okay.
If you've got a big gap there, they're gonna find that a little difficult.
Yeah, or
Understood.
conversely, to park on 102 and walk in from that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did,
Yes.
if you look, it slopes down from 102 right into the wetlands. It's just not a safe place to park, and as we said, people are whizzing by at 55-mile-an-hour plus. So it's what the lawyers call an attractive nuisance, and we're trying to
Avoid that.
avoid that. Yes.
So I take it you gentlemen are in agreement.
Yes.
So that northern part of the causeway will remain historically authentic.
Yeah, as it is, it won't be touched. And then there's another value to this that David pointed out. Once we start taking it apart, we will get some insight into how it was constructed. Was there a log base laid down beforehand, or was it just earth and fill? And so we'll get some documented history out of what the construction methods were back in the 1880s when they did
That'll be
this in the first place.
How big is the gap gonna be that I'm sorry if you stated this already, I missed it though. How big is
I'm not
the?
sure what the length of the causeway
Yeah,
is
the
offhand,
total length, the total length is about 390 feet,
so you'll
and it's
have a
about 20
200-foot
feet
gap
wide.
then.
And we're gonna leave 90 feet of it and take out about the southern. So that arrow that leads, or the word causeway over to the causeway, that's roughly the stopping point.
Okay. So you're removing like 2/3 of the southern portion of the causeway,
Yes.
leaving the
yeah,
top third,
right.
more or less.
So how will they do the restoration of the wetland?
I'm sorry.
How will they do the restoration of the wetland?
Well, the restoration should take place through nature. We shouldn't have to really do anything. We're actually not gonna touch the wetlands, so all we're doing is taking material out that's lying between the two wetlands, and it'll gradually fill in,
It'll kind of,
right?
erode together, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's just gonna be water that's gonna be moving back and forth.
So no huge earth-moving equipment.
No,
to
no,
transport
there'll be a small piece of equipment that will come in from 102 and start at the end of that arrow and then just work its way backward, picking up the material. The material will be just spread out along the upland along 102 in clumps, and then it'll just naturalize.
It's, I think it's very good that we at least have Lithia Spring from a historical point of view, which I've heard a lot about, but also for the wetland and maintaining wetland and water flow and species migration and everything.
Right.
Sounds like a sound plan to me.
Yeah. It'll also, with people, visiting there too, I think having the causeway kind of jut out into the wetlands is always it's also gonna create kind of this really nice little viewing area, where you can look around the wetlands and it'll be quiet. You can, minus the traffic going by on 102. But you'll be able to kind of take a look and see the wildlife around, and it'll be a great little spot, I think, for the town too.
No, you're absolutely right, Mr. Chairman. I think that and hopefully we can put a sign up kind of at the end of that causeway as well, that points out the natural features and why it ended where it did. If you've seen the signs along, there's another wetland sign on the rail trail by the peat bog that explains what that peat bog is and the animals around there. So something similar to that, I think, will be good. And you know, we're getting two for the price of one here. We're getting some historic value, we're getting some habitat value, and that's what made this project so appealing, so that we were able to get $500,000 from DES and $300,000 from the Land and Community Heritage Investment Program. So, you know, it's $800,000 that the taxpayers don't have to pay. So I'd appreciate it if the minutes could just reflect on that, you know, the commission is in support, and I'll report that back to all these agencies at the state level.
Everyone's in support?
Yep.
Yep.
I think,
Definitely.
do you need a motion?
Make a motion that we support this project.
Okay, a second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Official
Thank you
recommendation.
very much.
Yep,
Yeah,
thank you,
this-
Commissioner.
This will make Marilyn Ham very happy, because one of her lifelong goals is to
Was it really? Is it
acquire
really?
the Lithia Spring
Wow,
properties.
Yeah.
that's
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, and she's a great lady to begin with.
Yes. she
That's
certainly
awesome.
is. But David, I had a question, kind of like related with Springs, but Coas Spring, which is up by the airport.
Airport, yeah.
Has anyone in the Historical Society looked into that at all, any preservation efforts? Because I think, I know Ann Champa has walked it, and she has some of the details about it. But it's just a little bit to the west of where Milton Cat is, up at the airport. And I guess there's a cement structure that's still there. I guess,
that spring, yes, I went down there with Anne. You can go down the old trolley car track.
yes,
There's a very, very scenic waterfall down there.
yeah.
Really?
Ooh.
I walked that, it was probably years ago now, probably at least maybe
Yeah.
15 years ago. But it
When
was-
Anne and I went down, it was pretty overgrown. It was beating your way through the bushes.
Yeah,
but
you
it's
do.
nice once you get in there.
A little bushwhacking.
Wonderful.
Put the tick spray on. But I know Ann's talked about it with me several times, and Marilyn Ham also.
Lithia Spring, that's the write-up that's on file at the state.
Actually, we can put this in our record so everyone can get to see it.
Give this to you in a
What
minute,
if we
Kelly.
put it online?
Is that what you
Yes.
sent, Mike?
Wouldn't that be a good thing to
Is that part
do?
of the
Get it up on
summary
the
that you sent?
website.
No, that's,
Yeah.
that's
thought of
not.
it.
What David
Yeah.
had there? No, that's
Put it
different.
up on,
Okay.
hey,
But at least
Put it up on the website.
Coas Spring has had water that was healthy for everyone. Lithia was put out of business by the Federal Food and Drug Act in 1906.
Well, actually, the problem was that they were victims of their own success. The demand was so great, they couldn't get enough water out of the spring, so basically they diluted it, and at that point, the lithia content became too low to really call it lithia water, and the feds shut them down.
Yes, 'cause I know back 1800s, early 1900s, lithium was used for health benefits, or quote-unquote health benefits. And the actual realization that causes all sorts of genetic damage.
There's an explanation in the piece of paper I just gave you. They thought that it, well, actually it does, lithium carbonate will dissolve uric acid. So in the 1800s, the physicians were pushing it as a cure for gout, kidney
yes.
stones, and anything else that they thought was
Jeez.
was
With the,
associated with uric acid.
Yeah, keep it solubilized in the
can't
body
come
and it
off.
gets passed out
Yeah.
through the.
Did it work though? Did it work? Did it work? For the-
No.
Yeah.
Probably caused all of its own issues.
Oh,
Way too slow.
It probably look good on paper till you get
Oh,
into
it's
the
beautiful.
body, and then things were different.
people are still
There
howling.
were 3 springs in the US that were producing it. The biggest and most famous was Lithia Springs in Georgia. There was a Buffalo Spring in Virginia and Londonderry Lithia Spring. But they found out that the Buffalo Spring in Virginia didn't have any lithium content in it anyway, So Londonderry was really the only alternative to George's Lithia Spring. It wasn't nearly as big, but those were the only two sources at the time.
I guess the Coas Spring survived longer, so.
All right, in the interest of just moving things along, the next item on the agenda is public input.
Just want to thank the commission and the chairman for
Thank you very much,
entertaining
Mike.
us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
And David.
You probably knew there was a reason I came.
I saw you back there.
No.
And by the way, this presentation that these gentlemen made is really good, and I'm all for it. But I guess my question is this, that we've acquired, or we're in the process of acquiring it, I don't know whether it's finalized or not, and so we have going to have a really nice piece of conservation property that hopefully the citizens are going to use and appreciate it. I just kind of wonder about the access getting into it. I mean, I've walked in there myself, and there is the old foundation, stone and everything, which is kind of neat. But if the causeway's gone, then I guess there's going to have to be some access to get in there. Through wetlands and trees and everything else. I don't know if that's been figured out or not. I know
Sorry.
if we go over.
Sorry to interrupt real quick, though.
Yeah.
Can I just have you introduce yourself for the record?
Come on, Ray, you know the,
Yeah, you know the, yeah.
you know the drill.
Ray Breslin, 3 Gary Drive.
Thank you.
Yep.
Please
Yep.
continue.
So, and the other thing I just want to mention is, you know, we're going to have this nice piece of property. I wonder about the value of water on the property. And, you know, when you take grant money from the state or any other places, sometimes there are conditions, meaning they can have a say-so about how the property is used. For instance, the natural resource of water. If a company goes to the state of New Hampshire and says, we would perhaps like to look at the value of water under that property. Now, perhaps we could say, hey, it's conservation land, we own the property, and you can't touch it. But when you're talking about the source of water in the state of New Hampshire, the state has to say so. If a utility company, say Pennachuck, approaches the state and says, hey, I would be interested in taking water out of that property, we in the town don't necessarily own the water in the ground. The state has control of that. Okay? So I just want to make sure that we realize that, and we do have some effect if that comes up down the road.
I think that the property being identified as conservation property would probably stop that from happening, but it's a good question, so
Well,
we should certainly look into.
Yeah, you got to look at the small print on that deal. You know what I mean? Because when you're taking grant money from a state organization, they're going to have some say-so, or potentially could, you know? And so with what we're dealing with in the town of Londonderry, with water, whether we're talking municipal water or we're talking whether the town is going to have any control over it, like municipal water in the town, which I don't think we should necessarily go that route, but we do have to have say-so over a very important natural resource. What's more important than water?
Yeah, I think the state, as you said, Ray, I think the state has certain control over water.
Yes.
Like, you know, the property owner does not necessarily own the water. The state
Right.
can use that water for whatever purposes it deems necessary, you know. If there's a shortage of water, it could be a source.
It could be a source, absolutely. It could be a source, and we should have some say-so in regards to that. And I think we need to perhaps look at the details in that regard.
Yeah, 'cause I know previously the state has given, you know, companies that bottle spring water permission to use, you know, sources of water. I think it was maybe it was Nottingham. I think there was, it ended up in court, I think, and the court said the state has the control of the water.
Right.
So therefore, this company can suck all the water out of the ground and bottle it and sell it across the country.
Well, that's the case, you know, because any large water withdrawal, the town doesn't have say-so over that, the state does, okay? So a private company can go in, a bottle company can send, hey, I'm going to the state, I want to take out 30,000 gallons a day, can you give me approval on that? Potentially, the state can do that.
Probably something, keep our attorney busy.
Yeah, I'd push that to the town manager's office, have a look into it.
Maybe shed some light on this issue?
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
please.
certainly. Some expert testimony.
That'd be great.
If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself once again, please.
It's Mike Speltz, Conservation Commission. The conservation easement that will go on the property has a specific provision that runs to almost a full page that addresses the issue that Ray is raising. And basically, it provides the town the ability to extract water from the property. It is not as simple as driving a drilling rig out there and starting to bore a hole in the ground. That requires that we would have to do some preliminary work, show them a plan, and, you know, get the DES approval. But that's no different than what a commercial person would have to do anyway. So we did consider the possible value of that land as a water source. My guess is it's probably not enough of a water source to justify a municipal investment, but we've preserved the possibility to do that if it comes to that. So I think we've got that base covered.
Okay, but that doesn't override the fact that the state or a private company can also proceed in that manner.
Well, not necessarily a private company, because it's now our land. And there's no company now that has water rights over that land. Unlike in the West, and east of the Mississippi, well, water belongs to normally it refers more to ponds and streams, but it belongs to the person on whose property that it's abutting or is on. As Ray correctly points out, because water is still held in trust by the state, all the groundwater, all the wildlife for that matter, you have to get a permit from the state to make what's called a large groundwater withdrawal. So, number one, we would have to, under the terms of our conservation easement, get permission to make a withdrawal. And number two, we'd still have to meet those state requirements for a large groundwater withdrawal. However, a private company couldn't come in and do that. The example that you remember is correct in Nottingham. And actually, the way that turned out, the Nottingham people that were opposing that project prevailed. And I don't think that actually went forward. But
I don't think it really developed into anything. I'm trying to recollect what happened, but I think you've kind of refreshed my memory.
Right. But in that case, that company owned that land, and they wanted to withdraw water from their land, but they wanted to withdraw too much, and basically
Huge amount, it would draw water from the rest of the state probably.
Yeah, well, maybe not quite that much, but a lot. So I don't think the concern with the private company is a problem, and the concern that if we wanted to withdraw it, we could. If we can make the case that it'd be a viable source, yes, we could withdraw water from that land.
But what you're referring to is the town of Londonderry proceeding with that,
Right,
which is
right.
probably not going to happen, okay? Another example was, you said, you mentioned Nottingham and the, somebody owned that property that wanted to withdraw the water. A perfect example of that is Pennachuck, where they are anticipating putting a tank. They own that property, they own the wells there, and they can simply go to the state and say, I want to withdraw that water underneath my property that I own, which they're probably going to do.
Well,
I mean, why wouldn't they?
well, they're not gonna find water up on that hill, I don't think, but.
What? What?
The wells aren't gonna be up on that hill. I mean, they have wells in Litchfield, as you
No,
know.
no, they already have wells up there. There are wells up there
Where the
that they
tank is.
belong to them.
They're decommissioned.
Pardon?
I believe they're decommissioned.
You're correct.
Yes,
Well,
that was on
they're
the site
capped.
plan.
They're
They-
capped.
They're decommissioned.
Yes, they're.
But they're,
They could be recommissioned, though.
I doubt it.
You know, but
They'd have to come see us because it's part of the site plan.
That's still under review, so I mean, it's conditionally approved, but I'm just
Yeah, it hasn't gone
hesitant
through, it's,
to discuss the project in this forum.
yeah, agreed.
I think, I just want to make my point that we in the town really need to be aware of all of these issues when we're talking about water, and that's what I'm talking about. As far as the Lithia Springs, I think this project and what Mike and others have done is very good, and I'm all for it. So I hope I didn't say anything out of place.
No, not at all.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Ray.
Thanks. I just had one thing, between Kelly and Mike, they will be submitting a letter to the certified local government, to the Division of Historical Resources.
Yes.
So we can have our foot in the door for grant applications from the CLG.
Yep.
And I think we did have, I know a couple of years ago, talked about the listing of historic properties in town to update it, so. And what the grant would, I think, basically be is to have a summer intern come in and do the, photographing of properties. And then it would be this commission would have to sit and look at the pictures and say what's in, what isn't in. One little glitch, I think, is the state has a different definition from the definition that we have of what is historic. State says anything over 50 years. We initially went with the task force said 100 years. So the thing is, with 50 years, you get a lot of houses to look at.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And then look at what's been built in the last 50 years, we probably consider modern now.
I was just gonna say, my house would be on that list, and it's not even
so they say
close to a
50 and we
historic
say
property.
100? They say 50 and we say 100.
Yes, we say 100, 75% of the external appearance has to be original, or look original. There's a third thing which escapes my mind right now.
Half the splits on High Range would be included in that list.
Like it has some historic significance to it, either as, related to history or relating to the architectural design of that period.
So can I ask you a question? So we do this inventory and we say 100? What are the ramifications?
I don't know the answer to that.
You don't know the answer to that, no.
Because I know we had.
I'd
someone
like to
from-
find out the answer to that.
From, the state division down here several years ago. And we did end up with a discussion of back and forth.
Oh,
So
I'm sure.
and we didn't resolve anything, so.
But yes, we are putting together the letter of intent for that.
Yeah, at least we're got a placeholder, so to speak, so. I'm not a grant writer either, so I've never attempted.
Fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I know when because I was on the task force that did it.
100
And
years, 50 years.
we took pictures of the old places around the town. We spent about 3 or 4 meetings looking at slides of all, and deciding what would be in, what wouldn't be in. And I think it was John Dahlfred from the Historical Society. John's passed away now, but had a big part of it. David Cole Glazier also, because David is a good reference for historic antique properties.
50
That's all I
years.
have.
Okay.
God. Do I
All
get
right.
on that
Nothing
register?
else, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Anybody like to second that motion?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned.